Ibn Jubair relates that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu asked me, are you married? I replied, I was not. He then said, get married, because the best of the ummah had the most wives. He was referring to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tazawwaj fa inna khayra hadhihi al-ummati aktharuha nisaan. Meaning Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best in this ummah, and he had the most wives. So there is no harm in getting married. Ibn Jubair, get married. Over here comes the subject of, how can I say it? Marrying more than one woman. Now you can look at it from the man's side and the woman's side. Women won't like it, man will like it. Now, the women should be considerate with their husbands. As I mentioned before, that extra amount of jealousy should be brought under control. And if there is a reason there, some reason, then you should be considerate. This person, I was reading this kitab and it says in there that this non-Muslim English person asked one of the Muslim brothers, talking about marriage on this subject, and he said, you Muslims, you have, this, you can marry second, third time, how nice it is. He said, my wife has been disabled for so long, and I have to look after her, take care of her, and for fulfilling my desire, I have to go outside and fornicate, adultery. How nice was it if my country and my culture also permitted me to have a second wife, and I can have legitimate children from her, and I can also enjoy that freedom which you have. So sometimes there are reasons for a person to get married again, so we should think of that. Islam only permits it because of those various reasons. This is from the woman's side. From the men's side, you should not be greedy and lustful, and for no reason you try to go and get a second wife. You should behave properly, think properly, because with a second wife comes many stitches attached as well. You have to do insaf and justice between both of them. You have to spend one night here and one night over there. Do justice between them. If you treat one more favorably than the other, then there is injustice and you will be held to account for that. For example, you go to one's house after Maghrib and to the other's house after Isha. So the extra hours you give to one, you will be held to account for that. So even in this relation, you have to be just in there. Throughout the day, you give time over here, you have to give time over there. You have to give expenses over here, you have to give expenses over there as well. So there should be justice, insaf between both of them. If a person has two wives and he is unjust with them, then there is wa'id that on the day of Qiyamah, he will come in a state of limping. He will be paralyzed like a person who has a stroke. So he will be limping, and people on the day of Qiyamah will realize that this person used to treat his wife unjustly. So you have to keep this in mind, this fairness, equality, justice. If you are able to do it, if you are a nice person, you are humble, you can treat them fairly, equally, and you have some reason, okay. Otherwise, be content with the wife you have. Quran, when permitting more than one wife, said, فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا فَوَاحِدَةً. If you have fear that you won't be able to do adl and justice between them, then just marry one only. And this is the instruction from there. So in this culture over here we have today, we should try and be content with whatever Allah provides for us, and stop all these arguments and habits of thinking about second wife all the time. Some people get into this conversation and then they go into arguments, and then they get divorced, and they don't, rather than having two, they are left with none, and the first wife goes as well. And sometimes a person gets married with two. Someone came to Hazrat Thanvi and he said, I want to marry second time. So Hazrat Thanvi asked, he noticed that he's a poor person. He said, how many homes do you have? I said, he said, I have only one house. So Hazrat Thanvi Rahmatullah said, okay, you can get married, but if you get married for a second time, then you will need 3 houses. One for one wife, and one for the second wife, and third for yourself when they both kick you out. वो कहते हैं ना, 2 घर का भगाया हुआ दोनों जगह से भूखा रहता है. I went to this place, and one of my friends, Aziz Bhai, he had 2 wives. So, it was Ramzan, I would see him in the masjid. So masjid is empty and he is alone inside the masjid. I said, Aziz bhai, what are you doing in masjid at this time? I said, क्या करूँ मौलवी साहब, इधर जाता हूँ तो वो खिच करती, उधर जाते वो खिच के मस्जिद में आके बैठ जाता हूँ. So you will have to face all this. So you will have to think really carefully before getting married. Be content with what Allah has given you, and don't go down this line. Otherwise, you will be held to account on the day of Qiyamah. You will have to face the severe reckoning.